Morning, good afternoon, good evening. My name is Rich Clark. I'm a hypnotherapist for the last 8 years and I've been a holistic therapist for the last 15 years. So I'm going to talk about relationships, which I have already. I've talked about dating, I've talked about marriage, and I'm going to talk about the last one today, which is divorce. So what is divorce? So divorce is also known as the dissolution of marriage in the process of terminating a marriage or a marital union. Divorce usually entails the counselling or reorganising of the legal duties and responsibilities of marriage, thus dissolving the bonds of matrimony between a married couple under the rule of the law of the particular country or state. It can be said the legal dissolution of a marriage by a court or other competent body. Now, divorce laws vary considerably around the world, but in most countries divorce is a legal process which requires the sanction of a court or other authority, which it may include issues of distribution of property, child custody, alimony, child visitation access, parenting time, child support, and the division of debt. In most countries, monogamy is required by law, so divorce allows each former partner to marry another person. Now, divorce is different from annulment, which declares the marriage null and void with legal separations or de jure separations, or a formal or de facto separation. Reasons for divorce vary from sexual incompatibility or lack of independence for one or both spouses to a personality clash or infidelity. Now, the thing was probably in old marriages is most people waited until they got married to have sex. This was quite common, probably pre-1920s in the Western world, sometimes even it's gone on still to this day in other cultures. Nowadays, most people are cohabiting, co-living with people until they get married. So the idea of this kind of, waiting for sexual incompatibility, I think personally, in my own opinion, again, not disrespecting other religions or races or whatever, I do believe that you should be with someone, live with them and find out if you're compatible. And from personal experience, I was engaged for 2 years, and while I was with that person, there was a load of things which were incompatible, and that's why we separated through different issues of personality, cultural issues, personality clashes. We had a business together which had problems, and then just different ways of what you're looking for. And with that, I split from my ex in I was 30, so I'm 43 now, so 13 years ago. And I think that was the best thing to do. I knew that after being engaged, I saw this person, and when I was engaged with them for 2 years, I'd been with them a year before, lived with them for 2 years, and I just saw things I just wasn't happy with. And I think you have to make them decisions before you get married and hopefully don't get divorced. I think divorce is very painful. It's very complicated as well. And the overview of grounds for divorce varies from country to country. So with marriage, it can be seen as a contract. So it ends up being a financial breaking of a bond if it becomes a divorce. And though divorce laws have become very jurisdictions, there are basic approaches to divorce: fault-based and no fault-based. Unfortunately, the idea of fault-based is, say someone commits adultery or an affair, or they're not present in the marriage, or things like that. Now again, in some cultures, people are quite happy that they're married, and then their partner goes to study for 4 years, and then they come back, and then they carry on their family. In the West, that very much doesn't happen, but it's quite common in other cultures. So we have to look at divorce, what the idea of that is, religious-wise, how it doesn't work. You see, the thing is with divorce, there's also blame, and I think we're working as a hypnotherapist, we hear people's blame. People go, "Oh, it never worked. The divorce, why it happened as a divorce? Marriage never worked because they were two different religions, they were two different contexts, they were two different cultures." And the thing is, with every marriage, is you have to work at it. I don't think two different cultures is that much of a problem. There's usually a common thread you find, and that is within love, concept of morals and ethics. It all is kind of equates to the same. I think you need to work at marriage, and I think some people don't work at that anymore. And that can be a sad state, because you meet couples and you can see that there was some love there, but it's just not working. And some people just can't be bothered to fight anymore. And I think that's a very much a difficult thing to work with. I've worked with people who have gone through divorce or separating, and it can be very much them sessions with with counselling, couples counselling, or working with divorced couples or married couples. It can be very challenging. You can get through a lot of shouting matches, and you've got to try and balance the two. And I kind of take it that it's better that they let all these feelings out, and people get angry, they feel disappointed, there's shame within that. Some people also feel because they come from broken families, their parents got divorced, and then they get divorced, and it's a shame on their family, and they feel they're failed. It's not. Actually they reckon nowadays in the Western world 1 out of 5 marriages end up in divorce, which is kind of a sad statistic. And sad statistic, not sadistic, sorry. That'll probably come out on the Opus clip thing wrong. Anyway, so we have to look at these about the contested divorce, why someone does this, and then divorce settlements become a problem. And that's why for so many people nowadays, if they're wealthy and they get marrying someone who isn't wealthy, then they do what we call prenuptial agreements when they get into marriages. So, for example, a summary divorce is something that happens quite a lot. It's a short duration of marriage, less than 5 years, absence of children, absence of agreed marital property, absence respect to each spouse, and so forth. The no-fault divorce, which is basically just based on the assertion of by one of the parties that marriage is broken down without any need for an allegation or proof of fault. And I think that's probably one of the lesser things we get to, but I think that's probably the best divorce you get. Uncontested divorces, these happen quite a lot. Meditated divorce is how someone's planned to divorce or use the person to do that. And so I think what's happened now is, what is the main causes of divorce? Well, the main cause of divorce is adultery. Secondly was family strain. And thirdly is domestic violence. And domestic violence in some cultures was accepted, that people, like say, was going to traditional values, that a wife had to do what their husband said. Nowadays we don't do that gladly, but there are some cultures who still believe in that. And domestic violence is something, I think there's many people I've worked with who they were courting, they get married, and then the partner changes. And that happens a lot, and which is absolutely crazy that happens, but it's just sometimes people change. Some things change. That sort of pace of paper can change a lot of things when you get married. Midlife crisis is like 13% of reason why divorces happen in the Western world. Midlife crisis is where sometimes one partner ends up being 40 and they decide that they don't want to be with their long-term partner, they've had children, and they now want to go with someone younger. And generally that is men who do that, but it has happened in the past. There is cases of it with women who also do the same. And midlife crisis causes a lot of issues with people, but it's again, there's something not working in the marriage to make that happen sometimes, and then sometimes just that naturally occurs. Again, fault then changes sometimes with that. Addictions is probably one of the worst things. It's alcoholism and gambling, and I would say with that's also about strengthening the dating before you get married. If that person has an addiction, unless they clean themselves up before you get married, then that probably will carry on and get worse, because the pressure of being married will make it worse. Also, it's about how do they handle things. So if they lose their job, how does that be supported, or how let lose for different reasons, careers, whatever that is. Some people act very differently. Some people, actually, one of the things of divorce is workaholism, like being a workaholic. I think that's probably going to be becoming more of a common thing as time goes up, and the percentage will go up on that, because if you've got children, you're both going to have to work really hard to make sure that the children are looked after or cared for once you're at work. So then the people have to work harder, do more work, get more contracts, whatever that is. And I think that's going to put a lot of strain on people's marriages. And then also there's this other thing of keeping up with the Joneses is an issue. And I think this is where social media has a problem, because people believe that they can be richer and wealthier, and then their expectations are higher. The other thing is with divorce is the effect it has on children. Research has shown that children are greatly affected by the disunion of their parents' marriage. In most cases, these effects are displayed in academic strain, difficulty in regulating moods and emotions, and a tendency to find outlets in harmful substances such as activities as drugs, alcohol, and violence. Many adults I work with, they blame themselves for their parents' divorce. Very common issue what happens in hypnotherapy. They think, it's my fault, because nobody had spoken down to them, sat down with them, told them that, you know, it's mummy and daddy's problem or whoever's partner's problem, not yours. And then the children have this, and then they then bring this into their next marriages or their next relationships, and they always have this blame and feel shame. Very much a common thing what happens. So again, the effect, and what you do here is sometimes people say, oh, we'll keep him married because of the children. That's not good either, because children pick up things. So again, these things in divorce we have to be very wary of. And the one thing is, frequently children who have experienced parental divorce have lower academic achievement than children from non-divorced families. As a former school teacher, and I've been a school teacher for many years, we do notice something very common, and there's stats to prove this as well, that children who come from single parent families on average struggle more academically, struggle more with issues in schools than parents from more settled, stable family units. Again, there's a lot of people won't want this evidence out there, but again, you can check in most schools, in inner cities, anywhere, and you will find this quite common. Then you also have the other issue as well, is where, say, if your parents are married and one dies, this is from personal experience, my father died when I was 15, so a lot of the academic, when I was at school, they were always worried about me going off the rails, which never happened. But again, it's because the support system has to be there, and so that also helps the schools to support that system, family supporting the system of that for children. And I feel that if you have children, you must take the responsibility, even if you are at each other's throats and you don't love each other or whatever it is, you do not take that out on the children, and do not use the children as a weapon, because this is another issue we've had many times, is where children are used as a economic issue, and it's like, so one parent will be buying the children everything and the other parent's struggling. It's things like that. So there's a lot of this. Divorce is, like I say, is very painful, and I think psychologically the way it can work is, I would say most of the clients I work with, there is somewhere in their family which maybe even come across as stable to the outside world, there's always issues, and the upbringing people go through in their social conditioning is very much part of them issues. And the one thing is, people would say, oh well, you know, there was always this thing, people say, oh, same-sex marriages wouldn't work. Well, same-sex marriages are also there have been less studies of divorce with same-sex couples, but they are finding that in same-sex couples in rural areas, they may have a higher divorce rate. Again, there's not enough evidence or data to prove this. So again, it's theory-based. But I do think that, if anything, the idea of marriage is, if you are dating properly and you are doing the right things and you're doing the due diligence on who you're with, if there is problems in dating and you think marriage is going to sort it, I'm going to be honest with you, from working with clients and so forth, from knowing people in my life as a 43-year-old man, it doesn't work. If the problems are there before you get married, I guarantee that likeness, if it's 1 out of 5 in divorce, you're probably likely to be 1 out of 3 going to end up in divorce. You have to do the work. And that will mean taking responsibility, taking accountability, and having gratitude of whatever it is, and having compromise. And one of the things I think people need to always remember is having this idea of understanding, compromise, and gratitude for the situation you are. And the expectations within that, I think, are also the rounded element of that. So anyway, as that's for this week, thank you very much. If you are interested or you are going through different things, I can put people onto divorce coaches and so forth. I've also worked with people who have been divorced and so forth as a hypnotherapist. If you are interested, please contact me via here on YouTube or social media, and we can do a free consultation and can help you on your way. So until next time, and you will see some more videos and content which is related to marriage and divorce. And until then, I'll speak to you soon. Bye.